Okay, now it's live. We are live.
All right. Let's
Hmm.
go.
All right.
Okay.
I guess I'll introduce this.
Sounds good.
All right. So the Mario movie has been out for a couple of days now. There's been a lot of divisiveness. Oh snap! Let me. Sorry about that. I was hearing myself.
Oh, that
So
that go.
yeah, the echo. So I was hearing the echo.
All right.
But yeah, so it's been very divisive. The fans really love it, but the critics seem to really despise it. So we're here to give our thoughts as well as just talk about what we think about this movie in general, comparing to all other video game movies. And yeah, let's get into it.
Hmm.
I am your host, Team Bowser. Just joking. I'm Chuku,
I'm OC.
and we're gonna structure it a little bit. We're gonna start off talking about our like general impressions, kind of our opinions about the movie, and then from there we're gonna talk about the criticisms and like see where the critics are coming from, because there are some points that they kind of are right, but there's also points where I feel like they're being a little bit crazy. And then we're gonna talk about it comparing to like the Sonic movie, right? Because like the Sonic
Mm.
movie's been considered the best video game movie, and we want to see if really this video game movie might be a little bit better in certain ways. So but yeah, let's start off with general thoughts and opinions. What's your general take on this whole movie so far?
Generally, I really enjoyed watching this movie. I think that the humor for me in this movie was the key that led to my enjoying it. And of course, um movies, especially when they're comedies, they have all different kinds of humor that you can go with. I feel like the specific humor that was shown in this film, it really resonated with me and I really enjoyed it.
Hmm.
So yeah, just all the little moments with the little characters that, in other movies they would have been like throwaways, right? Like one of the moments that that comes to mind is when all the toads are running away from Bowser, and the they take a moment and there's like they show two toads and then the apple crates fall and the other
Hmm.
one's like, no, leave it, there's not enough time. And I was like, oh man, like that could have just been a whole sequence of like toads running around in chaos, but they like took a moment to like, let's just do something funny right now and show like this little microcosm in this huge scale of what's happening. And there were a bunch of moments like that throughout the entire movie, and I really think that that's kind of what pushed it up to that next level for me personally,
Hmm.
just being able to enjoy all of the comedic elements in the movie.
Yeah, I definitely agree. The comedic elements of the movie really stood out for me. Like I kind of knew I was gonna laugh with the trailers, but I was just surprised of how much the humor was really in there.
Mm,
Um, I think for me that really what made me like this movie so much was just like how much they really nailed the characters. Because I wasn't I was a little bit worried about character portrayals, especially since like even with Princess Peach, they're kind of making her more kind of like this like very warrior, Mrs. Competent thing. So I was kind of like, to some extent, and then even Mario being a little bit incompetent, I was a little bit worried about how much they're going to nail it. But for the most part, they really nailed these characters really well.
mm,
Um, I can literally see each character's doing what they're doing from the games in the movie. Like I could see this character acting this way, that way. So I was really impressed by that. A lot of references towards the video games, and I think for someone like me
so
who
many
grew up.
references.
Oh yeah, there's
Yeah.
definitely a lot, but like I think for someone like me who who grew up playing Mario, who grew up, like Mario 64 was like one of my favorite video games, and like was a bit heavy Mario fan. To see all these references felt really rewarding for me. So they did a really good job with that. And what I really like about this movie comparing to all the other video game movies is just it really feels like the video game. Like it
Mm,
really is like a carbon copy of seeing the video game in action. So it was just a wonderful experience to be like, to see this in theaters, like to see the game that I grew up with actually be recreated in theaters in a theatrical experience was just such a cool thing. So yeah, I think that to me itself is why I really, really love this film, and I want to see it again in 3D just to get a different type of experience.
Mm.
So
One of the
yeah.
huge things going into this movie was the I feel like it's bandwagon, but the hate that Chris Pratt was getting going up into this movie, that was, I think, one of, like, the biggest factors, that was hanging over the movie, at least for the general audience, and so it's really interesting, at least for me, to see the such a positive reaction from the general audience, despite all of the, prior all the voice Chris Pratt's voice for Mario isn't what we wanted, right? Like, that was the
Mhm.
huge news that was going into it, and I don't know, for me, I didn't have a problem with the voice that we got in the trailers from Chris Pratt, because I don't know. For me, like, the alternative was to have this, super, over the top, Italian accent that is, literally a video game voice. And I don't know, the prospect of listening to that kind of voice for 90 minutes straight didn't necessarily seem like it would be appealing to me.
Mhm.
And so I honestly, from at that time during the trailers, I wasn't mad about the idea of just not having that voice for the entire movie. Um, but then now it seems like people have kind of softened up a little bit to Chris Pratt, as far as his portrayal of Mario in the movie. I don't know how you feel about how he did and his performance in the movie.
Oh, sure. That's good. We can talk about performances now that we're getting into it. So for me with Chris Pratt, I didn't really have again, this goes back to characterization because like when I first heard the voice, to me, I think my biggest problem was that I just couldn't like it felt too like, it didn't really feel like Mario, it felt like Chris Pratt, right? Like, I feel like I was just hearing some guy be like, "Oh, I'm Mario, and I have these problems, like Mario problems," right?
Mm,
So, at the beginning, that was kind of my issue. It wasn't really the fact that he was an Italian, it was just that it felt like it was just Chris Pratt pretending to be Mario. But as the movie went by, it I would say it was fine. Like, I do prefer a more Italian voice that would have been more imperfect, but I think overall it's fine because again, the characterization of Mario was still there. So
mm,
I could at least take my suspense of disbelief and think that okay, at least I can see Mario doing these things. But there were a couple moments where it's like, for example, the meow part. And I don't know what it was, but I was just thinking, this sounds like Sonic when Sonic was like meow. So it was like there were moments where it's like and I'm not gonna blame Chris Pratt for that. That's more writing wise, but there is moments where because of that, similarity of like it being too Americanized, it does kind of like there are moments where it does feel a little bit less Mario, but overall, I think because the characterization was spot on, I was able to at least, it was tolerable. Like it wasn't really bad.
mm.
It wasn't something that was like, oh my God, it was horrible. It's just like, okay, it works. It worked overall. So that's my take on the Chris Pratt performance. But to me, there was a lot of standout performances. I know Jack Black was the one people talk about, but
Yeah, Jack Black.
to me, the biggest one is a tie between Seth Rogen as Donkey Kong and Luigi. I felt Luigi was really, really good.
Yeah, Seth Rogen as Donkey Kong did a very good job. Like, and you mentioned earlier too, just like the way that they characterized all of these, characters that we know and love. The rivalry between Donkey Kong
And
and
Mario.
Mario. Yeah, it was like so well done, so well done. And Seth Rogen did a great job with that. I forget who the voice of Luigi was.
I think it's something
Um,
Day. I think it's Charlie Day, I
oh,
believe.
okay, okay, okay. Charlie Day.
Yeah.
Yeah, they all did a great job. Anya Taylor-Joy did a very good job. I think her voice was perfect
Yeah, it was right. Princess
for
Peach.
Peach.
Yeah, it was right.
Um,
Oh yeah, Toad. I can't forget him.
oh
What's his
yes,
name? Um
the guy who
not
plays Toad.
yeah,
Um,
it's from the Keenan and Peele
Key,
guy.
Keegan Michael Key.
Yeah, him.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
He was perfect. Like he
He
fit the
was.
energy of Toad. Like that's Toad. Like he's like, "Wow, let's do this." Like
Yeah, he might have
that
been
is
my
Toad.
he might have been my favorite character in the movie with his like his little clips, but I don't know. Of course, it's hard to beat Mario, but yeah, I really loved all of it, all the references, all the performances. They all did great, but honestly, Bowser,
Yeah.
Bowser, Jack Black killed it. I'm sorry, like I can't see anybody else's performance being eclipsed by Jack Black in this movie. The fact that they gave him musical numbers,
Oh yes.
it's
Yes,
just like
yes. That
it killed
was
me. It killed me in the
yes,
moment.
that was
Oh
really good comedy.
yeah.
I wonder, do you think he improv that? Like he was just like, "Why don't I add this to the movie?" And they were like, "Oh, why don't we put that in?"
Part of me feels like it was all him, and they were like, "Yeah, let's do it." And so I love.
Yeah.
I hope that that's how it went.
Yeah,
But yeah,
I'm gonna tell myself that's how it went. He just
yeah.
improv those whole things. Those were very amazing scenes. I mean,
Mhm,
I definitely agree that Jack Black has the best performance out of everyone, but I guess for me it was more of like I expected Jack Black to have a good performance, but I did
mm,
not expect all
mhm.
these other people to, especially
Also,
Luigi, yeah,
yeah.
to do really, really well. I was like,
Mm.
Jack Black, I was like, of course, like the minute I saw him play Bowser in the trailer, I was like, okay, he's gonna do well. He's gonna kill it. But everyone else was like, those were surprises.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah,
I'm glad. I'm glad it went well.
yeah, definitely, definitely, definitely. Performances were really spot on. I mean, the animation was really well done from Illumination, so it's like you got good animation. Um, I'm trying to think what else I really. Uh, Another thing, I think I told you this when I was watching the movie. I felt kind of like there's sort of this theme of like broness. You know, it's
Oh,
like,
yeah.
like you know,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Even, like, in the moment when Donkey Kong is clowning Mario for how he was flirting with Peach.
right? Yeah.
He was like, "That's how you flirt?" And then Toad comes in and is like, "No, she would definitely go after it." It's like, those little moments is like, yeah, there was definitely, like, a bro vibe to a lot of the film,
Yeah,
which is
exactly.
really well, I mean, it's Super Mario Brothers, so
Yeah, so it's bros, Super
yeah.
Mario Bros. So you know they got to be
Exactly,
bros.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, but as
Mhm,
far as I guess since we're shifting gears, as far as criticisms, I do have three particular criticisms for me in the movie that it didn't kill my enjoyment, but it was something that kind of uh like stood out for me. So the first
mhm.
one being with Princess Peach, which I've said this before in a different video where I was like I'm not against the idea of her not being a damsel in distress, but she literally is a Mary Sue in this movie. Like she literally is someone who like she was
Yeah.
just born really talented. She could just do all these things. You really don't like there's moments where it's like you don't even need Mario. Like you could have just she could have just taken care of the whole thing and she would have won. Like she could have beat Donkey Kong in that Donkey Kong challenge. She could have got the star and like the part where she's like, Mario, get the star. She was literally free in that moment. So it was just like it was just the thing where it's like I get what they're trying to do. Like they want to
Mhm.
show strong women characters, but I just don't like when it's pandered like this, where
I
it's
feel
like,
like I feel like it's just like a writing issue because
yeah,
they could have essentially made the same movie. I think one of the issues was like the her having this whole, "Oh, yeah, like, I got it on the first try," with the whole, like, trials thing,
yeah,
stuff like that. Like, if they were like, "Oh, no, I've spent, like, my whole life on this planet.
exactly.
I've trained, like,
Exactly.
I've earned all of these skills." I think that would have been, like, a
Exactly.
better and then the rest of the movie could have just, been the same.
Yeah.
But yeah, I understand what you're saying. Um, I think ultimately they went for the joke in that moment.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
so it was just like, "Oh, okay, well."
yeah,
But that's kind of the whole I feel like that resonates for the whole film. It's like most times they kinda just go for the joke,
yeah.
which, um, I would have a problem with in most movies, but I think that because I, like, legitimately laughed in this movie, I didn't necessarily have as much of a problem with it. But yeah, no, I see what you're saying. I see
Yeah,
what
yeah. I think partially for me, and I guess it's just a petty gripe where it's like when you play Mario games, you're going through all these trials to save her. Like you get to the point where you have to collect purple coins and all these kinds of stuff. And it's
Mhm.
like to know that this girl can do like if you know Princess Peach is this competent, why am I saving you? You know what I'm
Why
saying?
am
It's
I
like
the one who's saving you? You should be saving me.
exactly. So I
Yeah.
think that to me, yeah, to me, I wish it was more written. going back to what you mean, like I would prefer it to be like Princess Peach was like brave, but she was still a little bit incompetent. So it was like something where it's like she's willing to do these things, but she still struggles. Like I think that would have been a better way, and it still would have been funny because it would have been like they both Mario and Princess Peach are kind of bumbling around and being fools, and it could be more relatable in that case. So I think there was a missed opportunity there, but I get why they were doing it. So that was one minor gripe. Another minor gripe was I didn't like the American music that was being played, where it was like they have to play the whole, I
Oh,
need a
that like
hero. Like it was just
I I think it bothered me at the beginning, but the more I went through the movie, I honestly I really liked it. Like I really liked the decisions with a lot of the songs that they put in there because it was just like, yeah, it felt really fun to me. But yeah, no, I can see how it can bother other people.
yeah, to me, just it felt like it was like, okay, we have a movie, we have to do that generic, it's a kids movie, we have to do the generic pop
Mhm.
songs, and it was
Well, I
just
don't think it was generic kids pop music. I think it was specifically like 80s style music, because of the era from when the video games were made. So it necessarily it had like a purpose, like there was a reason behind all the choices for the songs. Um and I don't think it was just like a general, oh, like this is a kids movie, we're gonna put like, Ariana Grande music on.
yeah,
You know
but
what I
at the
mean?
same time, it's just very they always do these musics in these kids movies. That's just a thing I've always noticed. Like if it
That's
like if this wasn't a kids movie, I doubt they would even put that song. I'm just gonna be 100.
Well, sure, yeah, I don't think they would have, but, yeah, I think, in the context of the movie, I think it was a good choice, at least for me, but yeah, I can understand how it would bother other people.
Yeah, I just think for me, especially for a Mario movie, it's like we didn't need to have it and it would have worked pretty well. So it didn't ruin the experience, but it was kind of the thing that's like, okay, we're playing this kind of like, especially since it's kind of been overplayed in these movies. So it's like, oh,
Mhm,
we're playing this song here, we're playing that. Like if they did something more original with the music, it would have probably did I would have probably forgived it more, but because it was just kind of like, okay, train massage, let's play the I Need a Hero because that's the train massage song. So it was kind of a little bit underwhelming, but
uh-huh,
as far as the next criticism I had, it, it's this one's little, I will admit this is even more pettier than the other two, but it was kind of I understand that Mario was kind of a fish out of water, but I felt like they kind of overplayed the fact that he's super incompetent in that world. Like it was kind of overplayed
mm,
where and to me, the reason why I kind of had a little bit of an issue is because in the beginning of the movie, you see him being like he knows like he runs in, he does all these parkour stuff. Like you could see that Mario knows how to do these stuff. And then we get to this when he gets to the mushroom world, he's just completely incompetent. Now, again, I get it. It's a different world, different like it's a different setup. I understand why they're doing it. And it kind of also plays to the theme of video games where you have to try multiple times to get it right. So I kind of get it, but I feel like they kind of overplayed to the point where I was like, okay, they gotta make him fail. They gotta do that joke where he's like, oh, I'm gonna make it. Boop, I messed up.
yeah,
So to me, it was a little bit overplayed for laughs, in my opinion.
mhm,
Which I guess
yeah,
that goes back to the theme of this movie where there were too many times where I feel like this kind of comes like back to like the Marvel movie problems where sometimes they care too much about jokes where there could have
yeah.
been more dramatic beats. And it's like, we can do this, we could have a deeper story, but it's like, nah, let's make a joke here, let's make a joke there. So
Yeah. I think the issue with Marvel, at least for me, the way that I see it, Marvel kind of tries to play both a little bit more than like something like this movie. Where it's like we still like Marvel's like we want you to laugh, but we still want you to like take this story that like Doctor Strange is going through very seriously.
mhm,
But with Mario, it was very clear that like we just want you to laugh, right? Like that was like you have Bowser playing the piano and screaming out. Like there was just like very clearly like we don't necessarily expect anybody to take this story seriously. And
yeah,
so because I felt that, I completely get what you're saying because it is kind of the same thing that Marvel was doing or Marvel has done a lot, especially recently. But
mhm.
I think it's worse in Marvel's case than it is in this case.
That's a fair thing. And I'm glad that you brought that up because this kind of brings back to the criticisms that the critics were having. And you kind of brought up a good point because I feel like a lot of the criticisms that the critics were having for this movie, I feel like it comes back to expectations of like they were looking at this movie from like, okay, this is going to be like another Pixar. This is going to be like another,
Yeah,
um,
yeah.
like, like another
Like
children's or
Soul,
Souls, something
or
like that.
mhm.
So they were not coming like, and you brought up a good point that this movie they were trying to be a comedy movie. Like you can basically say this is just a comedy movie featuring Mario, right?
Exactly,
So
exactly.
a lot of it because of that they were really upset about the fact that there was less dramatical beats, the fact that the movie was basically very superficial and it kind of was basically like a marketing of like, oh, you know, remember this thing from the game or that thing from the game.
Mhm,
But they didn't take in that context that this was they were just trying to go for a more funny film and not really have any depth to it. But to their point, I do think that a lot of the moments or character moments would have been done better if there were moments where they did had a little bit like, you know, I don't want to say downtime, but a little bit kind of really, you know, go through the issues, um go through a lot of their kind of problems they're going through. Because I will admit that as much as I found this movie very funny, there were moments where I didn't really feel there was much stakes to it, to be honest. Like it was just like, oh, you know,
yeah.
even Luigi's about to die. It's been taken as, oh, that little what was it called? The thing from Mario Galaxy is all like, oh, the life of despair. We're just gonna everything's gonna die. It's just it's
Yeah,
being taken
yeah.
so lightly to the point where it's just like I'm not even worried about anything. So
Yeah,
there could have
yeah,
been a moment where you can feel more stakes and tension. So I kind of agree with them on that. But at the same time, like I do think they ignored the fact that this was more trying to go for a sillier route. So to expect it to be like Souls or even like Sonic is a little bit
yeah.
different.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah, I guess, do you wanna start, like do you wanna compare it to some of the other recent video game films that we've gotten?
Do you have any more opinion about the criticisms? Because I think that was one
Specifically
criticism.
for the for that criticism, I think that, yeah, I mean, they're right in saying that they don't like that the plot elements of this movie are lacking, of course. It's a basic plot. But yeah, no, like basically kind of what we said, that wasn't the purpose of the movie. Like
Hmm.
the purpose of the movie wasn't to have this, super deep, emotionally draining, intricate plot. But the purpose was to pretty much make an audience laugh and be nostalgic, and
Hmm.
it definitely exceeded in those areas.
Hmm.
So yeah, I don't I mean, I guess I can see the critic's perspective, but it does feel weird to me. I don't know.
I I will say one criticism that I could agree with as well, and I guess we can go to the Sonic stuff and other video games after this. Is that speaking about Sonic, I feel like with this movie, see, we have a history of Mario, right? So I feel like for us, that emotional connection is there because that we have a history of Mario. But like, say someone who never knew about Mario whatsoever, I feel like this movie doesn't really do a good job of you being connected to that character. Like you almost
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
it
yeah.
doesn't really do that. And I can
Uh-huh.
see why somebody who's never it almost
If
feels like you have to be a Mario fan to enjoy this movie. Like I can imagine someone who's never really been a fan of Mario and then you see this movie, it's a little bit like, oh, okay. Versus like the Sonic movie, you don't even need to know who Sonic is. And I feel like you could be connected to that movie. So
Interesting.
I have to give it to that where this
Yeah.
movie could have done a better job of people who aren't really it did kind of alienate people who weren't really familiar with the property.
I think that's valid. I think that's valid. Yeah, so I'm thinking about it. Because if you're somebody who has never like heard of Mario and you come into this movie, then there's nothing for you to hold on to. Um, but for all of us, like all the rest of us, we have had Mario all our entire lives, so they're kind of starting from a different starting position. But yeah, no, I get that. I get that.
Okay. But I guess yeah, we can move on and compare it to the other video game movies that we've
Hmm.
had in the history of video game movies. So what do you think where you would put this on your list of video game movies? Like do you think this is like the top tier of all of them, or you think like maybe there's certain movies that were better?
As far as video game movies go, I think this is probably the best one.
Mm.
Maybe. I mean, there are a couple of good ones. Um, People usually forget about Tron.
Oh, that's a video game movie. I didn't know that.
Yeah. It's a video game movie. People usually forget about Tron. And then even more recently, I know it's not based, I know it's technically not a video game movie, but it's kind of a video game movie, but like Free Guy, with Ryan Reynolds, that was a really good movie. I thought it was really funny. But as far as like strict video game movies, this is probably like definitely top three, I think.
Top three? Would you put it like number one?
Maybe I would have to think about it. I have to sit on it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's been a while since I've watched Tron, so I don't
Mm-hmm.
know if I'm rating it too high or not. But I remember having fun with that movie.
Yeah, Tron was a nice movie. Um, this is interesting because it's like I think this is the best video game movie we've gotten so far, just because it's like it really, and I guess the better way to frame it is adapting the property. Like in terms of adapting it, it really did a
Mhm.
good job adapting what the video game was and translating it into a film. Um, Experience. Now, granted, of course, you could say there's weaknesses within the story because of that, because it was very, superficial, very simplistic. But for the most part, it did a good job of adapting it. It was very close to the characters. Like it didn't feel like there was different. It didn't really feel too different from the game. So I like that. But I can also see an argument of like, for example, Sonic movie, right? Because that's like I always want to say that's like the number one video game movie that we have, even though I do want to watch Tron because I feel like Tron might be technically a better film than Sonic. But I can also see the argument again that the Sonic film is a better film than the Mario film in the sense of like it still was comedic, but you're able to connect to the character more. You're able to you're able
Keep
to
talking.
yeah, I will. You're able to connect to the character more. You were able to they were able to build more dramatic tension to the characters as well. And then with the second Sonic film, they were able to build upon it, and they were able to connect the games and the audience. So it was able to appeal to both sides, that the audience and the fans were able to come together, which is really hard with a lot of video game movies, because with a lot of video game movies, Arter like Mario just appeals to the fan base, and the fan base just likes it because they're doing references, or it may appeal to the critics because the critics like it because they're trying to build a story. So it's really rare to have that both people enjoying it kind of a factor. And yeah, I can see why other people may prefer other video game movies, but for me, again, when I think of a video game movie, I'm thinking in terms of, did you adapt what I've saw previously and then turn it into a film perfectly? And to me, this did this the best, comparing to like other movies like the Sonic film or even Detective Pikachu, which Detective Pikachu was nice, but it was like it wasn't really even much of the Pokemon. It wasn't really much of the Pokemon like what we expect
It
in
was
a
like a
Pokemon
completely
movie.
different thing. Yeah,
Yeah,
and
it's
even
completely
with
different.
that, I didn't watch Detective Pikachu, at least not all of it.
Hmm.
Um, so I can't compare it. But like, another recent video game movie was the Drake's Uncharted,
Hmm.
if you remember the Tom Holland one.
Hmm.
And there was a lot of excitement going into that movie because I don't know if you've ever played the Uncharted games,
I've
but
seen it.
you've seen it. I've played all of them, and they're all like really fun adventure games, like the style of like Indiana Jones, like
Hmm.
super fun to play. Um, like you could have done like a cool like uh Ethan Hunt from Mission Impossible meets Indiana Jones, and
Mm.
it would have been like a really great, like enjoyable movie. But I feel like they kind of went this weird, like, I don't know what they did with the movie. It felt like they didn't put any effort into it.
Hmm.
It felt like they were just like, oh, let's just grab a generic adventure movie script from like 2008 and let's put the Drake Uncharted name on it and remake it for today. That's how it felt. But yeah, I think that a lot of video game movies kind of suffer from that. they don't accurately translate the material from the game to
Hmm.
this new media. And like going outside of movies, something with like TV shows with The Last of Us that is
Hmm.
happening, that also happened earlier this year. That was probably the best, one of the best, like, straightforward adaptations ever.
Hmm.
And then talking about video game adaptations,
Yeah.
um, that was so well done. That was that was so well done. They focused on, they followed the story, and then anytime they deviated from the story, it was an improvement.
Mm.
And they did such a great job in telling the story of that world. um and so there, I think we're in like this really cool time where a lot of studios, a lot of executives are looking at video games and the story potential in it. I just hope that the right stories get into the hands of the right people, because I don't necessarily want people who feel like this is just a cash grab, like with Uncharted, to get hold of some of these really good franchises, or franchise potential properties.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah, I totally agree. And I mean, you can basically say the Mario movie is a cash grab because basically a lot of it was just them just commercializing. Hey, we got
it
this one in
was.
the game and all that. But
It
it was an
was.
entertaining cash
It
grab.
was an entertaining cash grab. Yeah, exactly. Like they at least made it fun for us.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
like something like Uncharted was just like, this is boring.
yeah. And I guess going back to that, you know, I just think video game movies already have a low standard. Like, let's just be real. Like, I mean, as much as Sonic is like they consider the best video game movie. If we looked at it as a normal film property, it's kind of like average at best.
Mhm.
So I just think anytime a video game movie does something really well and it adapts things really well, that's good enough within the video game movie standard. And I think that sometimes people overlook in that. But but yeah, I overall again I still think this is best video game movie. I was surprised how much I like this film. This is probably my favorite film so far this year. So
Oh, wow.
yeah, that's what I also have to
Nice.
say. Granted, again, I'm a Mario fan, so I'm
Yeah,
biased. I'm just being
gotcha.
real here.
Yeah, I think
So
John Wick 4 still has it for me this year.
I mean, I think John Wick is a better film. I'm never gonna deny that.
Yeah, yeah.
But
But for
this
you
movie,
personally,
yeah, personally, I enjoyed this
yeah,
so much just because I did not expect maybe I had really low expectations, but I just not expect myself to enjoy this movie as much as I did. And
nice.
yeah, I think I guess do we have any last thoughts?
The sequel, I feel like it has to have Wario and Waluigi. They gotta sprinkle them in there somehow. But yeah, we know we're gonna get Yoshi in the sequel. If you stayed for the after credit scene, we know we're gonna get Yoshi, um, which I'm happy about. I love Yoshi. I'm curious about who's gonna play Yoshi. That would be interesting.
I mean, can't they just use the voice actor? Because it's just Yoshi just says Yoshi. I don't want Yoshi actually
Yeah,
like
but
speaking.
Groot says Groot, and they got Vin Diesel to be Groot.
I don't know.
So I don't know. What if they get Vin Diesel to play Yoshi?
I doubt that. I mean, who knows? I mean, he's friends with Chris Pratt, so who
That'd be
knows?
funny. Yeah.
But but
Yeah.
yeah, as far as the second movie, if there's anything I would love to expand on, I don't know. I definitely would. Hopefully, they do take some of the criticism and make more. Not that it shouldn't be funny, but definitely have more depth to it and kind of open it a little bit more towards people who may not be as familiar with Mario.
Yeah.
But it'd be cool if they bring Bowser Jr. I think Bowser
Yeah.
Jr. should definitely play into the thing. That'd be a nice thing to have. I'm curious how they're gonna have Daisy. Daisy and Princess Peach. I wonder how she's gonna come in.
Yeah.
Um,
And
so
maybe give Diddy Kong a little bit more screen time in this
for
in the
sure,
next
for
one.
sure.
Yeah.
Although I think to me, I was thinking less about a sequel and thinking more about different like properties. Like I could see them doing a Donkey Kong movie. I could see them doing a Bowser movie.
Oh,
I feel like that should be a thing, to be
have
honest.
a Mario cinematic universe, a
I'm
new
totally down.
MCU.
They should. I'm totally in for the Mario Cinematic Universe versus the MCU universe.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm here for it. Let's go. Let's go.
Yeah, but that was our thoughts on the Mario movie and everything that's been about it. Let us know your opinion. What are you with the critics or are you with the fans? And don't forget to like and subscribe.
All right, peace.
Peace.